Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about the Trump administration's first significant slapdown, this by a district court judge in Seattle who granted a temporary restraining order to keep Trump's executive order attempting to change birthright citizenship from going into effect. All right, let's lay this out, and I think it will be apparent why the judge, a Reagan appointee, said when he took the bench, this order boggles the mind. Never a good indication if you're trying to defend the order, and wound up really having no trouble issuing the injunction saying it was blatantly unconstitutional. Birthright citizenship. It's a very well-established principle, and things follow from it. Let me just read the words of the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So that means that someone who's born here, and it doesn't matter who the parents are, becomes a birthright citizen by virtue of being born here. A very strongly established principle, and one that I think is, America has accepted as really an important point of equity and acceptance, even if you want to be harsh about illegal immigration, which obviously Trump is trying to do. This is a blameless person who's been born here and is, in effect, an American, gets to be an American, including, by the way, from a long-standing principle decision of the United States Supreme Court, attending public school. All right. So Trump is trying to hack away at that. Why? Well, almost certainly as part of the no-holds-barred, brass-knuckles attack on illegal immigration. He wants people who come here illegally not to have the reward of having their children be American citizens. There is this little problem, however, that the Constitution seems to completely defeat the argument. They've come up with an argument. But that's what the judge in Seattle called, was so unpersuaded by, almost, offended. And this is now a theme. The D.C. judges who all heard the January 6th cases, they're really offended by the blanket pardons. And this, too, is, received not just with... the judge doesn't just refuse to accept it, but really it boggles the mind, as he says. All right, the argument is this. Did you hear it in the, here, I'll say it again. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. What's the argument? It's in the subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And the argument is that if your parents are illegal immigrants, then you're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof because they're here illegally. It's a ridiculous idea. If it were true, it would follow that the children born here couldn't get a driver's license, wouldn't have to pay taxes, could run into people and not be sued. Basically, a little bit like diplomats are, right? They're outside. They're in a bubble outside the reach of the law, federal or state. And not only has it never been thought to be, but think about that kind of system. So basically, it would say from the start, children of even illegal immigrants, they're not simply that they can be full citizens. They're like, invulnerable beyond the reach of the law. It's nuts. And so nuts, in fact, that, I have a couple colleagues who think, yeah, it's totally, totally nuts, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be possibly support in the Supreme Court for it. I think there really couldn't be. The court has really come through for Trump on very dramatic and important junctures, but this is so beyond the pale. I don't see they're embracing it. I'm not even sure they review it. But there's a way of thinking about this that may be, and it would be the sort of darker view of the whole week, that this is what you could call a kind of decoy law. That is, we're spending a fair bit of time talking about how outrageous it is, and constitutional law professors are doing the equivalent, "Are you friggin' kidding me?" But what if it's almost a kind of distraction, a sort of sacrificial lamb? There's so much that he's put into place, and some of those provisions or orders are complicated and nuanced. So the idea is this sort of draws the enemy fire. And they know that they're not really gonna win it. They're not going to rewrite the 14th Amendment. And I think probably they will not rewrite the 14th Amendment. So what happens now? The lawsuit that 22 states have brought 6 different lawsuits. This one in front of the judge who granted the injunction is by 4 different states attorneys general. The DOJ was defiant and says we'll be defending this in court. But remember this principle, and it's going to come up a lot in the new Trump era. It's one thing to win on the merits. It's another to get a court to actually, while it's deciding the merits, to freeze the linebackers, as it were. And here, the judge had no trouble doing that latter gesture. You have to show basically, you're probably going to win. There'll be irreparable harm and injury if they don't freeze the linebackers, if they don't grant an injunction. The equities are with you, things like that are then separate. So this case, the judge has enjoined it for 14 days. The plaintiffs will try to have that extended. And then they would, in theory, unless the Trump administration withdraws the effort, have a trial about whether it's constitutional or unconstitutional. And the real question, this is going to really be a repeating theme with the Trump enactments, is whether in the meantime the law is in effect or not. So in the meantime, this law will not be in effect because the judge, having determined that the effort boggles the mind and that it's blatantly unconstitutional, has granted this temporary injunction, saying, as while we start to set things up and figure this all out, this law does not go into effect. And to do so would basically be let the president, by fiat, rewrite the Constitution, which I think is a fair summary of Trump's goal here. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.